Some men spend their whole lives fighting battles in courtrooms. I used to be one of them. For years, I served as a federal prosecutor, taking down criminals who thought they were above the law, corporate fraudsters, corrupt officials, men who believed power gave them immunity. I thought I'd seen it all, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened when I came home. A fresh start, or so I thought. My name is Ethan Carter, and I never planned on returning to Holloway. It was my hometown, but I had left. Long ago, trading its quiet streets for the high-stakes world of federal law. Then my father passed away, leaving behind a vast stretch of farmland, a place he spent decades preserving. I wasn't a farmer, but I respected what he had built, so I did something people like me never do. I walked away from my career, packed my things, and came home. I had one goal: restore the land, keep it out of greedy hands, and turn it into a fully organic farm. Simple, right? Until she showed up. Karen Holloway, the woman who owned this town. Karen Holloway was wealthy, well-connected, and ruthless. She owned half the businesses in town and controlled the HOA like a dictator. She had one rule: if she wanted something, she got it. And what she wanted? My land. The offer I refused. It started civilly enough. A sleek black SUV rolled up my dirt driveway one afternoon. Karen stepped out, perfectly tailored suit, diamond earrings, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She walked toward me like a queen approaching a peasant. "Mr. Carter, I hear you've become quite the farmer," she said, her voice silky smooth. I set my shovel down. "What do you want, Ms. Holloway?" Her smile widened. "Let's skip the formalities. I want your land, all of it, and I'm prepared to pay generously." I didn't blink. "Not for sale." Her expression didn't change, but I caught the flicker of annoyance in her eyes. "Ethan," she said, as if we were old friends, "this isn't just about money. Imagine what we could build here: a luxury resort, a private golf course, something this town can be proud of." I crossed my arms. "Funny, I thought my father was already proud of this land." She sighed, clearly not used to being told no. "You're making a mistake." I didn't flinch. "No, Karen, you are." Her smile dropped. She adjusted her cufflinks, then nodded to her driver. "Have it your way," she said, turning back toward her SUV. I watched as the car disappeared down the road. Something told me this wasn't over, and I was right. The day everything changed. A week later, I went into town for supplies. By the time I returned, my world had burned to the ground, literally. As I pulled up the road, I saw it, a thick column of black smoke rising into the sky. My chest tightened. No, 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 no. I floored the gas, tearing down the dirt path. Toward my property, then I saw it. Or rather, what was left of it. My barn. Gone. The fields of wheat and barley I had spent months cultivating, reduced to ash and smouldering embers. The main house, flattened, and right in the center of what used to be my land, was a massive sign, its letters bold and mocking. "Coming soon, the Holloway Resort and Spa." I stepped out of my truck, heart pounding. Karen Holloway hadn't waited for me to sell. She took what she wanted. I clenched my fists, breathing hard. For the first time in years, I felt it, that familiar burn in my chest. The feeling I used to get when I built a case against someone who thought they were untouchable. I had left that world behind. But now, I was ready for war. And Karen Holloway was about to learn exactly who she had just crossed. The morning after my land was reduced to rubble, I walked straight into Karen's office. Holloway Developments sat at the top floor of the only high-rise in town, a glass and steel monument to greed. I didn't bother with reception. I pushed, opened the heavy oak doors, and stepped inside. Karen was already waiting for me, seated behind her massive desk. She barely looked up from her crystal glass of scotch. Her lips curled into a smirk. "Ethan," she drawled, "I was wondering when you'd stop sulking and come see me." I clenched my jaw. You burned down my home." She tilted her head, feigning innocence. Now, let's not be dramatic. The land was unused, a hazard really, and now it has potential." I stepped closer. "That land wasn't for sale." Her smirk widened. "And yet here we are." "The power play." I exhaled slowly. "You committed arson, Karen. That's a felony." She laughed, a soft, condescending sound. "Oh, Ethan." She leaned back in her chair. "You really think you can prove that?" She gestured to the side, and for the first time I noticed the other men in the room. 3 of them, lawyers, corporate, expensive, and completely devoid of morality. One of them, a grey-haired man in a 3-piece suit, adjusted his cufflinks. "Mr. Carter, my client has done nothing illegal," he said smoothly. "In fact, as of this morning, Holloway Developments holds a provisional development permit for that land." I narrowed my eyes. "That land is mine." The lawyer just smiled. Karen leaned forward. "Not anymore," she said. "The town council approved the zoning change. By next month, construction will begin. A beautiful resort, a spa, maybe even a golf course." I held her gaze. "And what happens to me?" She tilted her head, mock sympathy dripping from her voice. "Oh, Ethan, this isn't personal, it's business. You could always apply for a job." The lawyers chuckled. I didn't move, didn't blink, didn't give them the reaction they wanted. And that made Karen frown. The threat. The next day I went to the town council. I wasn't naive. I knew how this worked. Karen owned half the people in that room, and still, I made my case. I laid out the original property deed, the protected heritage status, the illegal destruction of private land. I watched as the council members shifted in their seats. Then the county commissioner leaned forward, fingers steepled. A man who had spent too many years in office, living off backroom deals and handshake. Agreements. He smiled, but his eyes were cold. "Mr. Carter," he said slowly, "you seem like a reasonable man, but you must understand. Progress cannot be stopped. The land is needed for the town's economic growth." I crossed my arms. "The land was mine." He sighed. "Perhaps, but if you resist, legal proceedings could drag on for years. Eminent domain is a powerful tool, Mr. Carter. It would be a shame if this turned into something unpleasant, a threat. A thinly veiled declaration that I was already beaten, that no matter what I did, they would take what they wanted." I took a slow breath. Then I smiled. Because what Karen and her council of corrupt cowards didn't. No, I was never just a farmer. I was a former federal prosecutor, a man who had spent years dismantling organizations just like hers. And I wasn't about to lose to a bunch of third-rate criminals in expensive suits. No, this was just the beginning, and by the time I was finished, Karen Holloway wouldn't own so much as a parking lot. Karen Holloway thought she had won. She thought I was just a bitter farmer, a man who would eventually roll over and accept defeat. So while she celebrated, I did what I did best. I built my case, and when the time was right, I would bury her with it. Step 1, capturing the crime I started with, the most obvious crime, arson. Karen had burned my land to the ground, thinking it would be her word against mine. But I had something she didn't, proof. A day after the fire, I sent up a drone. Not just any drone, a high-resolution, long-range surveillance drone. It captured everything, the charred remains of my crops and home, the bulldozers, clearing debris, violating a dozen environmental laws, the construction crew breaking ground on property that legally still belonged to me. I compiled the footage, time-stamped, and geotagged. It wasn't just evidence, it was a smoking gun. Step 2, exposing the fraud. Karen had been stealing land for years. I knew it. I just needed to prove it. So I dug through every real estate transaction she had touched in the last decade. And that's when I found it. Fake land transfers, properties, Sold by people who were either dead or never existed. Forged signatures, altering land ownership records at the county office. Illegally rezoned farmland, allowing her to push people out and develop whatever she wanted. The deeper I went, the worse it got. Karen wasn't just corrupt, she was sloppy. She thought no one would ever question her. She was about to regret that mistake. Step 3. Following the money I needed more. So I hired professionals, a team of private investigators, ex-cops, forensic accountants, people who knew how to dig in the places I couldn't. And what they found? Game. Over. Shell companies funneling money to politicians, offshore accounts hiding millions in stolen funds. Direct payments to city officials, bribes disguised as campaign donations. Karen wasn't just playing dirty, she was running a criminal enterprise. The celebration before the fall. While I was collecting evidence, Karen was throwing a party, a lavish fundraiser held at the most expensive country club in the county. Glowing speeches, champagne toasts. She stood at the podium, flashing that signature smug smile, and announced, "This town is about to witness the future of luxury. The Holloway Resort will redefine what it means to live in Holloway County." Applause, cheering. She was on top of the world. She thought I was beaten. She thought I had given up. She had no idea what was coming next. I watched from a distance, smiling to myself, because the moment she stepped off that stage, her empire had less than a week left to live. The first strike. I sent 3 packages, one to the FBI, one to the State Department of Environmental Protection, and one to the biggest newspaper in the region. Inside, proof of land fraud, forged documents, fake sales, and illegal rezoning. Bank records showing bribes funneled through shell companies, environmental violations, satellite images of illegal land clearing and protected habitats destroyed. The evidence wasn't just damning, it was bulletproof, and the moment those packages landed, everything fell apart. The fall begins. Karen was in a business luncheon when she got the first call, then another, then another. By the time she answered, it was too late. FBI agents were already in the county records office, pulling every file she had ever touched. The Department of Environmental Protection had frozen all construction permits on her land. The press? Oh, they were having a field day. Local tycoon accused of land fraud. Feds investigate Holloway developments. Her name was everywhere, and just when she thought it couldn't get worse, she got the court summons. The courtroom. Showdown. Karen stormed into the courthouse, heels clicking on the marble floor, her expensive lawyers flanking her on both sides. She thought she could talk her way out of it, that she could buy time, spin a new story, make it all go away. Then I walked in. For the first time since this started, she saw me not as a farmer, but as a prosecutor. Dark navy suit, polished, shoes, case files in hand, her face drained of color. I smiled. "Welcome to the real game, Holloway." Her lips parted, but no words came out, because in that moment, she finally understood. She hadn't just pissed off a landowner. She had picked a fight with a man who never lost a legal battle in his life, and this was a battle she was never going to win. Karen Holloway believed money could fix anything. Bribe a few officials, silence a few critics. When problems arose, she didn't fight them. She simply paid them to disappear. But there was one thing money couldn't erase: justice. And today, justice had a name. The verdict. Karen sat in the courtroom, her once flawless confidence reduced to a nervous wreck. She had walked in expecting a slap on the wrist. Instead, she got everything she deserved. Convicted of land fraud, environmental destruction, and conspiracy, stripped of her real estate licenses, ordered to pay millions in restitution to displaced families. But the worst part? Her precious development empire, Holloway Resorts, was finished. With her criminal record, no bank would finance her. Her investors? They vanished overnight. The woman who had once controlled this entire county now owned nothing, the lawsuits that buried her. But it didn't stop there. Karen had spent years exploiting people. Now they wanted payback. Former homeowners sued for fraudulent evictions. Environmental groups demanded massive fines for illegal land clearing. Even her own business partners turned against her, filing breach of contract lawsuits. By the time the dust settled, she wasn't just broke, she was bankrupt. The woman who thought she could buy everything had lost everything. The restoration. Meanwhile, my land, the land she tried to steal, was restored. The government, under pressure from public outcry, officially recognized it as a protected nature reserve. I even got calls from environmental organizations offering grants to fund conservation efforts. The same land she burned to the ground now stood as a permanent reminder of her failure. The final goodbye months later, I found myself driving past the county jail. Out of curiosity, I slowed down, and there, behind thick steel bars, stood Karen Holloway. She recognized me instantly. Her eyes burned with hatred. She gripped the bars, her once manicured nails now chipped and broken. She had lost her wealth, her power, her freedom, and yet she still didn't understand why. I smirked. As I rolled down the window, I said the words that had haunted her since the beginning. This land really wasn't meant for just anyone, but not in the way you thought. Her face twisted in rage. Before she could respond, I drove away. And just like that, the last piece of Holloway's empire disappeared in the rearview mirror.